I rose from Noah's bed as she nonchalantly threw my underwear toward me. I've updated the door code. Only visit if it's absolutely necessary, she stated. I stood still, automatically questioning. Why? She grinned, her lips curling softly. I committed to being his girlfriend just yesterday. I worry he might be upset if he notices you here. As I regained consciousness, my lower back throbbed painfully. There was no alternative. Noah truly knew how to get what she desired. She possessed a relentless drive that kept me moving forward, unable to halt, utterly unable to stop. I turned around to find her already awake, her stunning shoulders and back illuminated by the morning sunlight. She appeared in white with a slight tint of red, her eyes half closed and emanating a seductive allure. "Why are you awake so early?" Her voice retained a hint of roughness from the previous night's restless activities. The rigidity in my lower back caused me to frown. As I bent to pull up my pants, I realized that I had acted too quickly yesterday. The zipper was completely broken. Noah turned over, playfully swatting at the white lace lingerie I had given her the previous day, flinging it back to me with a sly smile in the corner of her eye. "Your taste could use some work. You keep making me wear these outdated white lace pieces. Can't you choose something more modern?" I caught the lingerie. "All right then, I'll purchase some new lingerie for you." "What kind do you prefer?" I asked. However, Noah cut me off. "It's not necessary. I'll update the door code later. Only come over if it's essential." I was taken aback. I had been with Noah in this manner for a year. Initially, she would invite me over every few days, and later, except when she had to stay late at work. Initially, she would invite me over every few days. Later, except when she had to stay late at work, I was essentially living at her place. We shared meals, watched TV shows, and when we left work early, we'd snuggle on the couch to watch movies and munch on popcorn. By the end of each film, we were entwined together, resembling an actual couple. Over time, I'd become accustomed to this lifestyle. Occasionally, I wondered if Noah had grown accustomed to me as well. What if we could start a family together? It would be wonderful. But now she was telling me not to visit anymore. Instinctively, I asked, "Is your family coming over?" "I can." She sat up, gazing at me with a slight smile playing on her lips. "No, I promised to be his girlfriend." It took me a moment to understand whom she was referring to. Recently, I had heard that a wealthy recent graduate had been relentlessly pursuing her. Over the years, numerous men had courted her, but she had never consented to any of them. I had assumed that this affluent college graduate was merely looking for something new, naively believing he could manage a woman like Noah. Therefore, I hadn't given it much thought. I asked in a husky voice, "Are you serious?" Noah smiled. "Yes, serious. He's unlike the other guys, Lucas. You don't know him. He's so genuine. Unlike many men, I can discern their true intentions with just a single glance," she said, looking straight into my eyes. I offered a faint smile without replying. She went on, "I don't want him to know about us. He'll be upset." Sunlight poured in through the curtain gap, blinding me. Its intensity made me feel dizzy. "All right," I said calmly after a brief pause. "Then I'll pack up and leave today." "No need to rush," Noah replied softly, nonchalantly picking up a pleated skirt and putting it on. "Didn't you return your apartment? Stay a few more days and find another place before you depart." I closed my eyes briefly. A sharp, bitter pain surged in my chest, rendering me speechless. "No, I'm leaving today." I wasn't sure why I felt so desperate. Noah was correct. I genuinely had nowhere else to go, but I still wanted to leave immediately. It felt as though Noah had exposed me completely, leaving me to wither under the sun. I was engulfed by a sense of shame. At Noah's residence, my belongings occupied minimal space. Most of my purchases were for her convenience: appliances, kitchenware, bedding, and a few assorted decorative pillows. The house featured a minimalist decor, and she had previously lamented that ever since I had moved in, the space had become more cluttered. However, my personal items could all be packed into a single suitcase. Just as I was preparing to depart, Noah halted me. She leaned against the doorway, one hand gently resting on the door, her body slightly angled to one side. Her eyes bore a slight smile, and the edges of her lips curled upwards as she spoke. "Lucas, you're not a child anymore. You should find someone and settle down. From now on, we'll remain friends." I comprehended her implication and nodded. "All right." The winter in South City was damp and chilly, not exceptionally cold, but the cold seemed to penetrate deep into your bones. It felt as though it was snowing. I observed damp snowflakes softly landing on my nose. When I glanced upward, the previously clear sky began to darken abruptly. Countless tiny snowflakes drifted down with the wind. South City hadn't experienced snowfall in years since Noah and I had moved here. Snow now seemed like a rare occurrence. Suddenly, memories of my hometown, a small northern coastal city, surfaced. Every winter there, the humid sea breeze transformed into heavy snowflakes that fell all night long. By morning, the snow would accumulate up to my knees, enveloping everything in a white blanket. It was invigorating, unlike the perpetual light snow in the south that made people feel somewhat uneasy indoors. I set my luggage aside and chose to sit at a roadside bus stop to call home. My mother answered the phone promptly, her voice both excited and cautious. "Lucas?" The cold air pierced my nose, causing me to rub my irritated nostrils. "Mom, I'm craving your dumplings," she replied cheerfully. "I'll make them for you. Let me check the flights." "It's almost New Year's, so tickets might be difficult to obtain," I interrupted her. "No need, Mom. I'm coming home for the new year this year." She hesitated for a moment before her voice brightened with joy. "Really?" I glanced upward, snowflakes appearing in my eyes. I blinked, feeling my eyes begin to water, and said in a hoarse voice, "Mom, I'm planning to return to my hometown." That afternoon, I submitted my resignation. My boss attempted to dissuade me. "Is it due to salary? You can discuss it. We can negotiate. With the department manager leaving next year, you're the one with the most potential for promotion. It would be a shame for you to leave now." I smiled and shook my head. "Thank you, Mrs. Laura, but I want to go home and be with my parents." I've never been particularly ambitious. I don't aspire to reach the top. I simply wish to live a tranquil life. I moved to South City because of Noah. She aimed to advance her career here, so I stayed by her side without hesitation. I believed that if I spent enough time with her, she would eventually notice me. But it seems that love cannot be forced, no matter how hard you attempt. While heading to the hotel, a nearby bookstore was playing a song. A woman's voice sang passionately. "An adventurous love became your puppet year after year, only to realize how miserable you are. Loving to the point of compromise, yet in the end, still no solution. Tying you down, not letting you fly. History keeps repeating, and it's exhausting me." I listened quietly for a moment. The first time I met Noah, I was 17. Now, at 28, I had been compromising for Noah these past years. Approaching 30, this 12-year-long absurdity needed to end. That night, I dreamt of Noah as she was during her teenage years. At 17, she had transferred to our small county school in her second year of high school. While most of the kids in the county were still awkward and unkempt, she wore a black dress, her long hair cascading down her shoulders, and her figure slim and elegant. She resembled someone from another world, a model straight out of a fashion magazine. That afternoon, nearly all the boys in her grade congregated by the windows to gaze at her. Within days, even freshmen were sending her love letters. She had become the new campus beauty of the school. However, she ignored everyone, consistently sitting alone at the back of the class, often asleep. It appeared that she had no interest in anything. She didn't bring anything to class, didn't pay attention during lessons, and the teachers didn't trouble her. Occasionally, during exams, she would nudge me on the back and say, "Hey, let me copy your answers." She seemed to expect that I wouldn't decline, and I didn't refuse her requests, which contributed to that. Many girls disliked her, accusing her of dressing that way to entice men. Numerous rebellious boys, even those with complicated relationships, would incessantly send her love letters and harass her, inciting jealousy among the girls. For several days, I noticed Noah arriving at class with handprints on her face. Until one day, as I walked by, I saw her being slapped by a group of girls in an alley. Her face was smeared with dirt and bruises, and bloodstains marked her forehead. I didn't hesitate. I stopped my bike, picked up a brick from the roadside, and struck the head of the girl leading the group. Witnessing my aggressive stance, the others fled in fear. I discarded the brick, retrieved a Band-Aid from my pocket, and handed it to her. "Your face is bleeding." She raised her head and gave me a cold look. Get lost. At that moment, I found her extremely annoying, unable to discern right from wrong. What a jerk. I didn't like her regardless. From then on, no matter how much she nudged me for answers, I ignored her. A month later, fewer girls bothered Noah, but rumors about her in class began to spread more. Some claimed that the black dress she wore only once was from an obscure brand, priced over 30,000 yuan. Others said she was an illegitimate child, with her mother being a mistress, and that they had been discovered by her father's legitimate wife, leading her father to abandon them. Her mother couldn't survive in South City, so she took Noah back to her hometown. All eyes were on Noah, some admiring, others dismissive or curious, with an underlying subtlety. One winter evening, returning home from school, I passed that alley and found Noah lying on the ground. She appeared to have been severely beaten. Her fingers were stained with blood, and her once beautiful face was bruised, blood dripping from her forehead. Initially, I didn't want to help, but seeing her lying there with her eyes closed in the snow continuing to fall and nearly burying her, her face pale, I feared she might actually die. So I cautiously approached and tapped her. "Noah, are you okay?" She didn't respond. I panicked and pulled out my phone. "I'll call 120. Only then did Noah open her eyes, frowning. "Why is it you again?" I felt slightly irritated, but there was no time to debate. "You're seriously hurt. Let me take you to the hospital." "Mind your own business," she sneered, then closed her eyes once more. I didn't argue. I proceeded to call 120. She was dressed too lightly, wearing only a white knitted sweater. After hesitating briefly, I removed my black down jacket and draped it over her. Noah was taken aback. As I was leaving, she called out to me. I turned around. My down jacket was an outdated style, purchased years ago, and looked somewhat comical on her. She glared at me coldly. "Didn't you know my mom's a mistress?" I mounted my bike. "I've heard." "So what? Then why did you save me? Your mom is your mom. You're you." I paused, considering. Besides, being a mistress might be frowned upon, but it's not a death sentence, right? Noah didn't answer. Her trembling eyelashes, dusted with snow, met my gaze. The ambulance's siren grew louder, and I waved my hand. "Don't forget to return my down jacket." Afterwards, Noah didn't attend school for a week. The girls who had harassed her also stayed away for the same period. Following an incident where Noah's mother confronted the school authorities, all of those girls were expelled. A week later, Noah returned. She gave me a blue down jacket, turned away, and said, "Your jacket got ruined, so I'm replacing it with this." I didn't think anything of it and accepted it. It wasn't until much later that I realized how expensive that down jacket was. It could have bought every piece of clothing I had ever owned in my life. From that point, our relationship developed naturally. Noah's demeanor towards me gradually improved, and I became her only friend in this small town. Before the college entrance exams, Noah suddenly asked, "Lucas, do you want to go abroad?" I was startled. She lowered her head, her ears turning red, and continued, "My mom plans to send me to the US. After the exams, would you like to come with me?" I forced a bitter smile and replied, "Young miss, how could my family afford to send me abroad? So, where do you intend to go?" I paused and answered, "Probably the capital. I'm worried I won't adapt to the southern climate. The capital is also closer to home. It would only take a few hours by train to return." Noah reached out, tugging at my knitted cap and pulling it down over my eyes without any further words. Later, the teacher instructed us to list our ideal universities. I assumed Noah would choose a university in the US. However, she wrote down the same university in the capital as I did. I was taken aback and asked, "Noah, weren't you planning to go to the US?" She leaned over her desk, mumbling, "I suddenly feel like the US isn't that great. The capital isn't bad either." But 3 days before the exams, Noah ripped up that piece of paper. When I inquired, she remained silent. That night, I learned that Noah's father's legitimate wife and their son had both perished in the same car accident. Her father had requested her mother to bring Noah back, and after losing their son, he finally began to pay attention to his only remaining daughter. He promised that if Noah stayed in South City, he would grant her mother legitimate status and allow her to inherit the family business. Noah stated that she didn't care about her father's money, but her mother slapped her, weeping as she said, "Do you know why I've endured all these years? For whom? As long as your father marries me, I won't be a mistress anymore. No one will be able to say you're the daughter of a mistress. In the summer, when cicadas buzzed and made your head ache, under the shade of a silver birch tree." Noah bowed her head and avoided looking at me. "I'm sorry, Lucas. I can't go to the capital with you." Her voice still had a husky quality, and her eyes were red from crying. "I'm sorry, Lucas. I can't go to the capital with you." Her voice remained husky, and her eyes were red from tears. I paused for a moment, then lowered my head and softly patted her on the head, saying, "It's okay, then I'll go with you to South City." When I opened my eyes, it was already morning. Perhaps because I had been out in the snow the previous day, my head felt slightly sore. However, tonight was a friend's birthday, and I had already purchased a gift. I had to attend. I picked up my phone and saw that the first message was from Noah. She had sent a picture of a Snoopy pajama set. "I forgot to take my pajamas. Come get them tonight." Those were the pajamas Noah had accidentally ordered. She intended to buy one as a gift for me, but mistakenly ordered two. So, one for herself and one for me. Whenever she wore them, I experienced a brief moment of happiness, imagining that she belonged to me, even if only for a second. But now, in hindsight, it seems pitifully laughable. I typed a short reply. "Throw them away. I don't need them." She didn't respond. I turned over and covered my eyes with my arm. Since relocating to South City, many things had changed for Noah. I discovered that her mother wasn't a mistress after all. It was Noah's mother who had initially been with her father. She had Noah because she genuinely loved him. However, later, her father married a woman from a similar social standing to establish a proper alliance and abandoned both of them. Even after marrying Noah's mother, her father continued to engage with other women and expressed a desire to have more sons. Her mother's life was difficult. She argued with her husband daily, ultimately succumbing to severe depression and committing suicide by jumping off a building. Following that, her father appeared to have reformed, ceasing his pursuits of other women. However, the estrangement between father and daughter was irreparable. Noah never returned home after that. She began frequenting bars, nightclubs, and associating with various individuals in the entertainment industry. She drank, partied until dawn, and even took up smoking. The once pure, cold, and pristine Noah seemed to disappear like a dream, a fleeting illusion in my memory. That night at the party, I met Noah's new boyfriend for the first time. To my surprise, he was neat and cheerful. He wore a light gray sweater with dark blue jeans. His short hair was neatly combed, and he had a warm smile that exuded a sunny aura. He wasn't particularly handsome, but his eyes were sincere. Noah was correct. Compared to the other men who had pursued her before, he was genuinely different. However, he approached me and shook my hand with a smile, saying, "You must be Lucas, right? Noah talks about you all the time." She's such a liar, though. She said you dress so old-fashioned and look so poor, but you actually appear quite classy. We're both guys, right? Who doesn't know who? It was evident he was aware of my relationship with Noah and was now teasing me. Just as I was about to respond, Noah interrupted, linking her arm with his and saying, David, this is your brother-in-law. The others immediately began teasing. Brother-in-law, you better treat Noah well. So many people have chased after our Noah over the years, and no one's ever been able to win her heart. When's the wedding? I'll definitely give you a big red envelope. David smiled serenely, placing his arm around Noah in a courteous manner. Of course, of course. Noah also embraced him, then turned to the others and said, All right, if you didn't know any better, you'd think I invited you here to play matchmaker. You'll scare my David away. I won't forgive you if you do that. David can marry me whenever he wants. Her friends laughed. Looks like you two are already in sync. What a love fest tonight. We found a spot to sit. In the past, Noah would always sit next to me at these types of gatherings. But this time, perhaps out of habit, she sat to my left, just as I was about to mention. David approached me. He looked me in the eye and said, Lucas, could you please change seats? After all, you're still single. It's better to avoid sitting next to a woman with a boyfriend, don't you think? I was speechless. I was the one who had been seated here first, but now it seemed like I was trying to take someone else's girlfriend. What kind of logic is that? I glanced between the two of them and stood up, moving to the opposite side of the table. The night was lively, and I had no idea how much alcohol had been consumed. During dinner, David reached for the fish. Noah instinctively asked, Aren't you allergic to fish? David fell silent, and my chopsticks froze mid-air. After a lengthy pause, David's face darkened as he said, Noah, I'm not allergic to fish. Noah hesitated, her brows slightly furrowing, her eyes avoiding his as she said, I must have remembered wrong. David glared at her. Who's allergic to fish? Noah's face flushed a faint pink, and she instinctively bit her lip, saying, I forgot, I really don't remember. David glanced at me, his expression growing darker. Then, without a word, he placed the plate of fish in front of me, his gaze cold as he said, Lucas, this fish is pretty good. Try it. None of the other friends noticed the previous tension, and in their drunken state, one of them said, David, you don't know Lucas is allergic to fish. He can't eat it. David responded faintly, Oh, really? As the alcohol flowed and everyone became a bit more intoxicated, one friend blurted out, Noah, we all bet whether you'd get married before turning 30, and who would have thought you'd find true love so quickly? Another friend, also a bit tipsy, squinted and giggled. Yeah, we all thought you and Lucas would end up together. You two were so close. David's face darkened like the calm before a storm. Noah quickly attempted to mask it awkwardly, saying, Really? How could we ever be together? We're just the best of friends. You're so funny. She delivered this with a genuine laugh, as if it were the funniest thing in the world. Her friends joined in the laughter, saying, Exactly, now we know you two are just pure opposite sex friends. Ha-ha! I laughed along. Exactly, how could I ever end up with Noah? That's too ridiculous. Noah walked over and poked me in the shoulder. She must have been intoxicated. Her face was flushed, her eyes slightly glassy, and she tilted her head, asking, Lucas, you don't really like me, do you? In that moment, I wanted to discern something in her eyes, but there was nothing. She just looked at me directly, as if we truly were just the good friends she had claimed to be. I smiled slightly. Of course not. That's good. Noah nodded, then lightly tapped my shoulder. We're just the best of friends. Despite all the alcohol I had consumed, I had never felt this clear-headed before. I repeated, Yeah, the best of friends. The next morning, I purchased a direct flight ticket home. Before boarding, I checked my phone one last time. Noah had posted a new status on her social media, a picture of her and David together with no caption, just their hands intertwined. It was an official announcement, accompanied by all the congratulatory messages from their friends. I stared at it for a moment, then removed my SIM card and tossed it into the trash. Going home seemed simpler than I had anticipated. My parents came to pick me up. It was approaching the end of the year, and the streets were adorned with red lanterns. Stores played Gongxi Fuzai by Andy Lau. It wasn't as bustling as South City, but the lingering aromas of fireworks and firecrackers brought me unexpected comfort. My mom was thrilled because I hadn't been home for the New Year in 3 years, having stayed to accompany Noah. However, after a while, she couldn't help but begin nagging. "You're almost 30 this year. Why haven't you made any progress? Neighbor Sam's son is even a year younger than you and already knows how to buy groceries." "Oh, I saw him the other day. He's so chubby, really cute. The young man at your mom's workplace is going on blind dates. Oh, and our neighbor just met a really pretty girl. I'll introduce you to her." "Okay." My mom looked at me intently as she spoke. I used to dislike blind dates. For all those years, I liked Noah. She was the only one in my heart. But this time, as I looked out the window at the red paper scraps blown by the fireworks, I suddenly felt so weary, exhausted. Maybe settling down isn't so bad after all. "Okay, you don't always have to resist so much. I know you like that girl, Noah," she said. I nodded and replied, "Okay, introduce me to her." After dinner that evening, I habitually reached for my phone, but I received a WeChat call from Noah. I had already switched to a new WeChat account, but many of my old friends were still on the old one, so I occasionally logged into it. She seemed to have entirely forgotten what had transpired over the past few days and spoke as if everything was normal. "Why can't I reach you on your phone anymore?" Before I could respond, she continued, "Never mind. I've already prepared everything for the new year. Do you need anything special?" I suddenly recalled the year Noah's mother had just passed away. That year, I had returned to my hometown for the new year. On New Year's Eve, I had video called Noah to wish her a happy new year in advance. The video call took a long time to connect, and when the screen finally lit up, it was completely dark except for a small, dim, red-orange light gradually fading away. Noah's voice was hoarse, as if cold wind had seeped through the cracks. "What's up?" Once the screen brightened, I saw that Noah was sitting alone on the balcony, surrounded by scattered empty bottles. Outside the window, the city was lit up, and fireworks were exploding in the sky. But all the noise and celebration seemed irrelevant to her. She just sat there alone on the windowsill, observing the perfect lives of others, drowning in solitude during the night. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of pity for her. My throat tightened and I forced a smile. "I'm wishing you a happy new year in advance. Got any red envelopes for me?" She seemed to chuckle softly, and soon the sound of a transfer notification echoed. She had transferred 100,000 yen to me. I was stunned, and after a long pause, Noah suddenly asked, "Lucas, when are you coming back?" Her voice was carried away by the wind, and I couldn't hear the rest of her words. I couldn't tell if she was trying to say she was lonely or if she missed me. I couldn't think of anything else. I quickly told my parents there was an urgent matter at work, then booked the next available flight back to South City. At 3 a.m., South City was still as lively as ever. The streets were illuminated with neon lights, and cars streamed by endlessly. However, Noah's apartment was completely dark. I hurried upstairs and knocked loudly on her door. Noah opened the door. I had thought she had already gone to bed, but to my surprise, she opened it quickly and stared at me, completely stunned. "You?" She froze in place. "How did you come back?" I smiled and said, "I came to spend the new year with you." Noah didn't respond, just continued staring at me. Just as I began to feel awkward under her gaze, she suddenly threw her arms around me, holding me so tightly, as if trying to bury all her pain in my embrace. Her head rested on my shoulder, and silent tears soaked into my shirt. From that moment on, every year, I would spend the new year with Noah before returning home. It had become an unspoken tradition between us. But this year, I hadn't expected her to already have David by her side. And yet, she still chose to seek me out to spend the new year together. I glanced out the window and softly said, "I'm going back home." Noah froze. She didn't seem to anticipate me saying that. After a moment, she replied, "Yeah, it's been years since you've gone back home for the new year. You should go visit." I gripped my phone tightly. There was silence on both ends of the call, and I vaguely heard David's voice. Noah, come over here. I've fixed the hot water. You can take a shower now. I'm coming. Noah responded. I replied indifferently. I'm hanging up now. Mm-hmm. Her voice was unreadable. I pulled the phone away from my ear and pressed the hang-up button. I thought I wouldn't be able to sleep, but to my surprise, I fell asleep as soon as my head touched the pillow. When I awoke, it was already past 2 a.m. I had been woken up by thirst. The dry, cold air of the northern winter was still unfamiliar to me after just returning. I went downstairs to the kitchen to get a glass of water, but as I was about to go back upstairs, I suddenly heard a faint noise coming from the bathroom. Someone had broken into my house. My entire body tensed, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. My heart raced, and after a moment of hesitation, I grabbed the rolling pin from the table. Just as I was about to reach the stairs near the bathroom door suddenly swung open. I was so startled that my scalp tingled. Instinctively, I swung the rolling pin down forcefully. The figure inside deftly dodged the blow and swiftly moved aside. In that instant, I realized that the intruder was a woman, and she was dressed very scantily, wearing only her underwear. Damn, not only had this thief broken into my house, but she wasn't even clothed. I immediately dropped the rolling pin, grabbed her left wrist with my other hand, and pressed her against the wall to restrain her. To my surprise, the thief was very composed, and there was a faint scent of lavender emanating from her. However, in the next moment, she began to struggle violently. She twisted her body and reached up with her right hand to grab my face, prompting me to instinctively bite down on her arm. She was attempting to escape. I swiftly grabbed her right hand and held both of her hands firmly. She suddenly began begging in a tearful voice, "Please, let me go. My clothes are in the living room and the money I took is from my dad's secret stash, probably around 2,000 ween." I was speechless. This thief was even stealing from her own family. Seeing that I didn't respond, she continued, "If you think that's not enough, I can transfer more to you via WeChat, but I don't have much, only a few thousand on hand. Just let me go and we'll pretend this never happened. I've never seen you before. I'm still young, haven't been in a relationship or married. Please, I beg you." I was stunned, utterly bewildered. I couldn't tell if she was trying to say she was lonely or if she missed me. I couldn't think of anything else. I quickly turned on the light. A young woman was pressed against the wall by me with tiny droplets of water running down her fair cheeks. They glided over her slightly trembling eyelashes, flowed down her clear almond eyes like autumn water, and eventually gathered at her quivering chin before landing on her soft body. Her delicate figure was tightly pressed against the wall, highlighting her curvaceous silhouette. Her eyes were filled with fear and helplessness. Upon closer inspection, I froze. This woman looked exactly like the photo my mother had shown me of the young tenant next door. I hesitantly asked, "Anna?" She nodded, confused. Afterward, once she had dressed, she explained, "The water heater at the tenant next door broke down, and the landlady asked me to come here to take a shower. Sorry, I scared you." I was speechless and embarrassed, wishing I could vanish. I blushed and mumbled, "Sorry, Anna waved her hand and said, "It's fine, I understand. You really scared me, though. I thought I was going to lose." She paused and suddenly covered her arm. I looked at her and saw a small bite mark on her forearm, turning purple. I awkwardly scratched my head and said, "I'm really sorry. Let me go get some iodine to disinfect that for you." Before I had returned, I never expected my first night back home would involve sitting on my own couch next to a stranger. We were almost face to face. I pressed a cotton ball to her wound. That's when I learned that Anna was an artist and had been visiting the area for inspiration recently. "Looks like it's a bit deep. Really sorry I startled you earlier," I said, frowning as I examined her wound. "Do you need a tetanus shot?" Anna rubbed her face and seriously replied, "I think I need a rabies shot." It took me a moment to realize she was insulting me. I couldn't help but glare at her. However, my stare wasn't as intense since I knew I was in the wrong. Anna chuckled. "To be fair, your bite mark is actually quite round. It has a certain aesthetic to it." My mom really liked Anna and often invited her over for dinner. She would secretly give me suggestive glances. Anna is such a nice girl. She often comes over to chat with me and keep me company. Just look at her. She's so beautiful. If you two got married and had kids, they'd definitely be. I helplessly said, Mom, that's enough. It wasn't that I didn't think Anna was great, but I had once seen her wearing a trench coat. That trench coat, I thought, carelessly tossed over the back of my couch. I'd seen Noah wear one before. It was a custom-made piece from an Italian family with a century-old history, worth at least 6 figures. She also came from a wealthy family, unlike someone from my world. Yet Anna had a way of charming older folks. She would address them as Sir and Madam, and since she came, the garden had become even more vibrant. She enjoyed tending to the flowers in her spare time, filling the yard with the scent of fresh blooms. Even my dad spoke highly of her. Even on New Year's Eve, my mom invited her to join us for family dinner. I was speechless. Why did you invite her over? My mom gave me a look and replied, Anna's all alone here, so pitiful. Do you have the heart to let her spend New Year's by herself without even having dumplings? I had no choice but to watch as Anna sat down at the dinner table, her peach blossom eyes sparkling as she smiled. Anna sat down at the dinner table, her peach blossom eyes twinkling as she smiled. Madam, the dumplings you made are delicious. My mom's face nearly reached the back of her head as she eagerly served her more dumplings. If you like them, eat more. She continued talking incessantly, and I felt awkward as she sighed and glanced at me. Lucas, when are you going to bring a wife home for me? With others present, I felt embarrassed. Mom, there are people here. Can we just eat in peace? Anna turned to me and said, Lucas looks like such a warm-hearted guy, and he's really handsome. I'm sure some young lady will like him. Don't worry, madam. My mom pouted. What am I supposed to be worried about? He was so cute when he was little, and now he's getting more and more like his father. I'll show you his baby pictures in a minute. I couldn't take it anymore, Mom. Enough already. But Anna simply smiled and said, Sure. After dinner, my mom really pulled out the photo album and sat with Anna to browse through it. This was when he was 100 days old, so chubby and cute. Look at Lucas as a child. So fair, with big eyes. The neighbors all loved him. They said he looked like a little lucky doll. This is from his elementary school performance. Oh my gosh, look at his chubby cheeks. So adorable. My mom hadn't even finished flipping through when my dad called her away. I awkwardly walked over and said, My mom is like this. Don't mind her. If you don't want to see it, you don't have to. But Anna looked up with a smile in her clear eyes and said, Don't mind it. The madam is right. You were really cute as a kid. After watching the New Year's gala, the sounds of firecrackers outside continued unabated. The small town didn't hold back fireworks, and various colorful displays lit up the sky. Although they were clearly inexpensive, they were still dazzling as they blossomed overhead. I stood on the balcony with a bottle of beer, unable to stop myself from pondering what my friend had said. He told me that Noah was going on vacation to White Horse Manor with David, his tone laden with frustration. You've been unclear with her for so long, and you still haven't won her over. She's already planning her wedding in a few days. I could only smile helplessly. She was probably sweet and affectionate with David now, and from then on, she wouldn't need me to spend New Year's with her. It seemed like her life no longer required my presence. When my friend learned about the turmoil between me and Noah, he chastised me for being useless. I knew he was right. It was quite pathetic. She had never once expressed that she liked me. Yet, I kept clinging to her, pretending we had something. I loved her too much. I couldn't bear the thought of losing her, even if this false intimacy was the only way I could feel like I had her. But those counterfeit joys were fleeting, like fireworks in the sky, disappearing in an instant. Are you bothered? My thoughts were interrupted as I turned around and saw Anna with a lollipop in her mouth, tilting her head slightly. After I shook my head, she approached, the lollipop twirling in her mouth. I attempted to start a conversation. Aren't you going to mind being alone for New Year's? Where are your parents? Anna mumbled, chewing on the lollipop. They're far away. I wanted to smack myself. Sorry. Anna glanced at me, her eyes sparkling with a smile. They're on a cruise to Antarctica. I closed my mouth, feeling foolish. Anna couldn't contain herself anymore and started laughing, accidentally cracking the candy in her mouth. She coughed a few times before grabbing the beer next to me and taking a swig. I dryly replied, I've already had some. She handed me an unopened bottle and took the one I'd been drinking. So, what's fun to do here in the winter? Her question distracted me. I thought for a moment and responded, There's not much to do here. It's too cold in winter. You could watch a movie. Anna nodded slightly, indicating she understood. I then broke the silence. Curious, I thought. Why did you come here? Field work? Anna squinted toward the distant horizon. Don't you think the winter here is especially beautiful? Yeah, it is. So, when are you leaving? Anna didn't respond immediately. After a pause, she smiled with a sparkle in her eyes and said, I was thinking of leaving in spring, but now I suddenly want to stay a little longer. Why? Because. Just then, my phone rang, displaying an unfamiliar number. I gestured to Anna, and she wisely stepped back from the balcony. Hello? There was a long silence on the other end before Noah's voice finally came through. Lucas, did you change your phone number? I intended to sever all ties with Noah, informing only 2 close friends about my new phone number. I ceased using my old WeChat account, planning to delete it after reorganizing my personal relationships. But Noah easily found me. I believed our parting was mutual and understandable, yet I didn't anticipate her continued attempts to reach out. I gave a vague response. After a brief pause, Noah's voice emerged, low and controlled. When are you coming back? I'll go find you. Fireworks burst in the distance, their brilliance fleeting as only ashes remained. A moment later, I took a deep breath, feeling my throat tighten. Noah, I whispered, I'm not coming back. Silence lingered on the line, and after a few seconds, Noah's voice was emotionless. You're not coming back. What do you mean? I opened a beer can, spilling foam over it. I'm not returning to South City. I gripped the can, the coldness seeping through my hand, causing dull pain in my chest, numbed by the alcohol. I'm staying in my hometown. Noah. You're right, I'm not getting any younger. It's time to settle down with someone. Only the sound of breathing remained. I stayed silent for a while. I'll hang up now. If you don't have anything else to say, then don't look for me again. I was about to end the call when Noah suddenly raised her voice. Lucas, what do you mean? Say it clearly. Just then, Anna pushed open the balcony door. Beer? Do you want some more? Noah froze, then demanded, Lucas, who are you with? I didn't want to continue the conversation, so I hung up and blocked her number. Sorry, did I interrupt you? Anna asked as she came over. I shook my head. No, girlfriend. She suddenly sounded like she was gossiping. I took a sip of beer, the cold liquid sliding down my throat, leaving my neck feeling cool and empty, causing me to shiver. A red scarf, warm from someone's body, was draped around my neck. I turned my head to see Anna blushing. Don't freeze. That night, I lost track of time drinking with Anna. My parents didn't bother us, and we sat on the balcony, drinking and chatting. When I woke up, I found myself in my bedroom. Sleepily, I walked downstairs and was surprised to see Anna already dressed, sitting at the dining table with my mom, peeling garlic and chatting. I couldn't help but click my tongue. Some people can look like models even while peeling garlic. No wonder she's an artist. Looking at her face every day, how could her sense of aesthetics not be high? My mom frowned and scolded me. It's already so late and you're still sleeping. It's New Year's Day, and Anna has already come to wish us a Happy New Year. I glared at Anna. We drank together last night, and now she's trying to get me in trouble. My mom noticed a bite mark on Anna's arm and exclaimed, Oh my, what bit you? This big bruise? Is that a dog bite? I stopped in my tracks, and Anna smiled faintly. Oh, just a little curly-haired dog. Never mind the dog, did you get a vaccine? I did, ma'am. I gritted my teeth as my mom continued rambling. You young people staying at home all day is so boring. Go out and see the sights. Even though our town is small, there are lots of beautiful places. Anna lowered her long lashes, a touch of melancholy in her eyes. Ma'am, I don't have any friends here, and I'm not sure where to go for fun. My mom felt sorry for her and pointed at me. This wild kid is always lazing around at home. Let him go out and accompany you. Anna smiled contentedly. Ah, thank you, ma'am. I rolled my eyes. Anna appeared to be a high and mighty flower, but turned out to be a pretentious coquette girl after all. The next morning, I quickly packed up, planning to have breakfast and then take Anna out for a walk. My mom was still busy in the kitchen when there was a knock at the door. It was probably Anna coming over to mooch some food again. I walked over to open the door, muttering, "Back again to mooch off us." My words caught in my throat as I stared, wide-eyed. Standing at the door was Noah, wearing a black down jacket with snowflakes settled on her shoulders. When she blinked, the melting snow water dampened her lashes. "You?" I stuttered. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to wish the Mr. and Mrs. a happy new year and pick up my red envelope," she replied smoothly. My mom came out of the kitchen holding a spatula and cheerfully said, "Anna's here, ma'am made your favorite braised pork buns." Noah froze upon seeing her. Noah nodded at my mom. "Happy New Year, Mrs. I'm Noah, Lucas's friend." She set down a pile of bags in the living room and politely added, "I hope you don't mind me dropping by." My mom nervously put the spatula down. No, not at all. She struggled to find something to say. "Noah, have you eaten yet? If not, please join us." I thought Noah would refuse, assuming someone as high class as her wouldn't dine in my family's humble home. But Noah nodded sweetly. "No, I haven't." "Thank you, Mrs." I watched her quietly, wondering if she'd lost her mind. My parents were polite but distant during Noah's visit. They weren't oblivious. They knew who was behind my setbacks in recent years. Honestly, it wasn't Noah's fault for not liking me. But to my parents, their son was perfect in every way. If someone didn't like him, they were just blind. They remained cool and aloof around Noah. A while later, the doorbell rang again. My mom opened the door, and Anna came in holding a watermelon. I saw some watermelons being sold and thought I'd buy one. My mom's face instantly changed, and she smiled. "Oh my, you didn't have to bring anything. It's winter. Watermelons are so expensive. You're wasting money." "It's not expensive, ma'am. I smell braised pork buns. Did you make them this morning?" "Yes." My mom quickly handed Anna a pair of slippers. "The ones you like. Today, eat as much as you want." Anna had practically made herself at home, even having her own slippers in our house. At this rate, if I stayed away for another 6 months, my parents would probably treat her like their own daughter. The dining room became lively, with Anna chatting away with my mom about various topics, from Mrs. Lee's daughter marrying a gangster and getting pregnant before marriage, almost killing Mrs. Lee, to Mr. Wang from the East Side getting involved with his maid and trying to divorce his wife. I couldn't understand all of it, until Anna asked me, "Lucas, where are we going today?" Suddenly, Noah set down her chopsticks and looked at Anna coldly. "Who are you?" Her tone was rude. Anna wasn't bothered and simply smiled. "Oh, I live here." Noah's face darkened instantly. The rest of the meal felt like I was sitting on pins and needles. After we ate, I immediately called Noah upstairs. "What are you really here for?" I frowned. "Aren't you supposed to be with David on vacation?" Noah turned her head. I suddenly didn't feel like staying. She became a little angry and asked, "Lucas, why did you suddenly come back to your hometown? Did things not go well in South City? We're friends. If you need help, I can assist you." She paused as if there was so much she wanted to say, but all that came out was, "As long as you're willing to come back, right?" "You must be short on cash. Why didn't you say anything? That little bit of male pride won't feed you." I stared at Noah's face. Her arrogance was blatant, but with her beauty, Even harshness took on an air of icy elegance. Years had passed, and she hadn't really changed. I let out a bitter smile. "Noah, what do you want me to go back for?" She froze. I continued. "There's nothing left in South City to tie me down." "What about me? You're just going to leave me behind after all these years together." Her brows furrowed, and her eyes filled with complicated emotions. I cut her off. "But don't you have David with you?" "Noah," I said, lifting my head to look her in the eyes. "I can't stay with you forever. I have my own life. I'm not young anymore. It's time for me to settle down, find someone, and live a steady life." "Didn't you say that yourself?" Noah stared at me blankly. Anna called me from outside. "Lucas, are you ready? The car is here." As I stepped out, Noah suddenly grabbed my arm, pulling me forcefully. "Who is she?" Her face was dark with anger. "My house guest." "House guest." Noah sneered coldly. "I bet your parents are already planning to take her in as their daughter-in-law, huh, Lucas? You came back for her, didn't you?" I was getting impatient. "Think whatever you want. I'm leaving." The next moment, Noah snapped, shouting wildly, "What have you slept with her? Is it better than sleeping with me?" I slapped her hard across the face. Noah turned her head, her cheek stinging from the slap. Blood slowly seeped from the corner of her mouth as she wiped it away, a tear slipping down her face, mingling with a faint smile on her lips. "Lucas, you're something else now, hitting a woman." She grabbed my right hand and pressed it against the other side of her face, saying, "Is that better? Do you feel better now? You can hit this side too if you want." I looked at her, my heart a mess. I laughed bitterly and said, "Noah, what do you want from me? Are you insulting yourself, or are you insulting the me who stayed by your side like that?" Noah suddenly snapped out of it, hurriedly wiping away her tears. "Lucas, please don't say that. I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that." At that moment, all pent-up emotions burst through, and I felt like I couldn't stand anymore. It was like experiencing low blood sugar. Everything seemed upside down, and the world lost its color. I shook and collapsed onto the couch, my fingers trembling. Noah panicked and tried to comfort me. "I'm sorry, Lucas. Don't be mad. I was wrong. I said things I shouldn't have. Hit me again. Hit me twice," she said, dragging my hand and rubbing it against her face. "Hit me twice," she repeated, her face streaked with tears as she sobbed. Hit me, please." I was shaking with anger, pointing to the door and shouting, "Get out, Noah! You disgust me, get out!" This was the first time I had laid a hand on Noah and cursed her. Noah stood frozen, confusion in her eyes. Just then, her phone rang and she answered. David's voice came through. "Noah, where are you?" "I just got food poisoning. I'm in the hospital. When are you coming back?" Noah didn't respond, hanging up the phone. After a long pause, she softly said, "Lucas, if you ask me to stay, I won't leave." I looked at her, gave a faint smile, and calmly said, "Go ahead, Noah. Don't come back to find me." Noah gave me one last look, her eyes dark with emotion. "Fine," she said. "Lucas, don't regret it." The last tear falling from her cheek and splashing onto the floor before she slammed the door and left. I didn't understand why Noah had acted that way. After reflecting, I figured it was probably because I'd always been by her side. When I suddenly left, she wasn't used to it. Maybe in her eyes, even if she didn't like me, I was supposed to always be there, treating her like the center of the universe. But with Noah's prideful nature, after I'd spoken to her like that, she would definitely never come back. My eyes felt sore, and my heart was heavy with complicated feelings. Yet it also felt empty, like there was nothing left. That day, I couldn't go out with Anna. When I went to explain, my eyes were red. Anna didn't say anything. She just reached out and linked her hand with mine. That night, she came over again while my parents had gone out to visit relatives. When I opened the door, Anna was standing there with a pair of Ultraman underwear dangling from her delicate finger. "What the hell? That's mine!" My face flushed bright red as I grabbed it, lowering my voice to hiss, "Where did you get this?" Anna looked at me with wide, innocent eyes. It blew over from your balcony. I was in the yard, enjoying the breeze, and it just fell right on top of my head. I felt like my head was about to explode. I stammered, unsure of what to say. Anna just kept laughing, staring at the underwear I was holding with that annoying smile. "What are you laughing at?" I glared at her. Ultraman is a symbol of a mature man. Anna smiled sweetly. "Mom, when I have a kid, I'll name him Diga." I was speechless. She could even make such connections. "Rest well tonight. If you're feeling low blood sugar, just eat one of these." Anna handed me a jar. "I'll come find you tomorrow to hang out." She closed the door behind her. I looked down to see it was a box of chocolates. On this cold winter evening, that warmth spread up through my palms. I reached up and touched my chest. It felt like something was swelling there. Anna and I never got to watch the movie. It was a 6 p.m. showing, but heavy snow prevented us from getting a cab, and I hadn't driven my car. She insisted on waiting for the last bus. I checked, and around 6 o'clock was when the last bus arrived, so I took her there. But when we arrived, the bus had just left. We chased it through the snow for a while, but couldn't catch it. Anna was furious. An $80 movie ticket, just like that, wasted. There's nothing we can do. Since you've already done your makeup, let's just go for a walk by the sea. The winter sea was beautiful, as if the entire world had been coated in a cold bluish tint. The streets were blanketed in white, and the blue signs stood out against the snow. Occasionally, couples wrapped tightly, laughing and talking closely together. On the narrow streets, the headlights of cars turned the falling snowflakes into a warm yellow hue. Anna and I walked along the beach, chatting here and there. I had researched over the past few days and found out that Anna was a very famous and talented artist in the industry. So, I asked her politely, "What have you been painting lately? I've never seen you paint." Anna glanced at me and stuck out her tongue, saying, "I'm not telling you." I was speechless. "Fine, if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to." She was being quite mysterious, acting like she was hiding some secret. The cold, damp sea breeze pierced through the gaps in my clothes. Anna walked for a bit, rubbing her hands together, and exhaled a puff of air. "I told you to wear more layers. You were too busy looking pretty, and now you're cold." I don't usually speak like this. My friends always say I have a good temper, but for some reason, when I'm with Anna, I can't help but tease her. She shot me a glance and retorted, "A real man would take off his coat and give it to a woman. Are you even a man?" I teased back. "But I'm only wearing one jacket. If I give it to you, I'll freeze." Anna, fuming, walked ahead, muttering, "You dog of a man, I can warm myself up with exercise." But I grabbed her arm. "I can't give you my coat, but I can share half of it with you." With that, I unzipped my jacket, pulled her into my arms, and wrapped it around both of us. The faint scent of lavender lingered near my nose as she pressed her face into my chest. I could feel her heartbeat, and she could feel mine. It was like a drumbeat. I couldn't tell if it was mine or hers. She felt warm and soft, and both our chills were swept away. We stood there quietly, wrapped in each other's warmth, neither of us speaking first. At some point, the snow stopped falling. The clouds in the night sky parted, revealing a few scattered stars. One star was especially bright. Anna looked up for a moment and asked, "Lucas, have you ever read The Nightingale and the Rose?" My mind went blank. "What? There's a nightingale in it?" She hears a young student crying because he can't find a red rose. So she gives her life to create one. I nodded and asked, "Okay, so what happened next? Why did the student need that red rose?" The waves along the shore had already frozen. A smooth, white surface stretched across the beach, with more snow accumulating on top of the waves. "Lucas." Anna suddenly called my name. I looked down, and Anna was gazing at me intently. There was a soft, glowing light in her eyes, a gentle tenderness. Slowly, she rose onto her tiptoes. A cool kiss landed on my lips. Sitting on the plane back to Nan City, I couldn't help but smile bitterly at the window. I had just said I wasn't coming back, and here I was again. But a friend's wedding is one of those big life events, and I couldn't miss it no matter what. Anna insisted on coming with me, but after that kiss, my mind was in turmoil. So I refused her. She didn't seem too happy about it. When I left, she stared at me at the airport. "Lucas, if you don't come back, I'll come find you in Nance City." I nodded and said, all right, I'll come back tomorrow." I had just put the red envelope into the box and sat down in the banquet hall when I felt a gaze on me. Noah naturally sat in the chair next to me. David, seeing me, furrowed his brows slightly, but still smiled and said, "Lucas, I heard you came back to your hometown. How come you're back so soon?" "I came for the wedding, and then I'll go back." David let out a sigh of relief, his smile widening a little. "I see. It's a pity, but when Noah and I get married, you have to come to that too." I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. I simply replied, "Yeah, if I have time." Throughout dinner, Noah seemed to show off her affection. She'd feed David some food or hold on to him and make him drink. The two of them were glued together, all lovey-dovey and clingy. If this had happened before, I would have definitely felt uncomfortable. But at that moment, my mind was filled with that kiss from Anna. What did it mean? Did she like me? What should I do? Do I like her? Meanwhile, Noah and David's public display of affection grew more intense. Noah, who had been smiling earlier, suddenly changed her expression when David put a piece of beef on her plate. She stiffly said, "David, I'm allergic to beef. You forgot." David froze for a moment, about to speak, when suddenly, the noise from the table next to us grew louder. It was the family table. The groom's family was upset because the bride had bought a house before the wedding. The groom's side shouted, "Your family's just been scheming against us." The bride's relatives were equally angry. "We agreed to pool in for the down payment, but you secretly bought the house, and now expect us to pay for the renovations. What's the logic behind that?" The groom's uncle, drunk, started pointing at them and cursing, "So what if it's for renovations? Does your daughter feel too shy to move in? Are you selling your daughter off?" The bride's family stood up. "What do you mean by selling off? You guys changed the terms without telling us. Everyone knows property values rise, and renovations only reduce the value. Do you think you're the only ones who are smart? You think everyone else is an idiot?" The two sides exchanged heated words, neither giving way. No matter how the bride and groom tried to mediate, the shouting wouldn't stop. Eventually, someone must have thrown the first punch, and chaos broke out with dishes and bowls flying around. In the confusion, several bottles of liquor came crashing toward our table. Noah instinctively pushed me away. One bottle hit David's head with a sharp crack, and blood began to seep from his forehead. Noah didn't notice at first. She leaned over to me and asked in a panic, "Lucas, are you all right?" David stood still, his hair stained with blood, staring blankly at Noah, who was worriedly looking at me. Only then did Noah notice the blood on his forehead. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but fell silent. David clenched his fists, gritting his teeth, but said nothing. I had a bad feeling. I quickly got up to leave. I understood David's hostility toward me, but I'd already given up on Noah. I really didn't want to get involved in their business anymore. "I'll head out first," I said quickly. "Thanks for earlier." "Wait." Noah instinctively started to chase after me. David shouted from behind, "Noah, if you go after him, we're done." Noah's footsteps slowly came to a halt. After a moment, she turned to look at David, and there was no sadness on her face, only a slight sense of relief and release. "Okay," she said. David's eyes widened. After a long pause, he stared at Noah, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. "Noah," he said, his voice filled with anguish and hatred. "What are you even—" Then, without a second glance, he turned and left in disgrace. Walking out of the hotel, I lowered my head and asked, "Why?" Noah didn't answer. After a long silence, she suddenly stopped and gave a self-mocking laugh. "Because I like you." All right, Lucas, I understand now. I finally understand. It's me. I'm pathetic. She closed her eyes for a moment, her slender figure seeming to collapse as if the stone weighing her down had finally been moved. If we're together, I know you like me. From now on, whatever you want from me, I'll give it to you. I won't be with anyone else. Come back, Lucas. I stared at her for a while, unable to stop myself from thinking. If she had said this months ago, how happy I would have been. I had liked her for so many years. In the past 10 years, I had been exhausted, in pain, and troubled, but I'd never once given up on my love for her. I finally got what I had dreamed of. Noah had returned my feelings. Yet, I only felt ridiculous. An indescribable fatigue washed over me. I shook my head. No. Noah grabbed my shoulder with force, her brows furrowing, a flash of excitement passing through her eyes. Why, Lucas, can you honestly say you don't like me? I looked up into her eyes, the woman I had loved for 10 years, who had grown from a girl into a woman, her appearance seemingly unchanged. But I felt as if the world had shifted, as if everything had changed. For the first time, I clearly understood we couldn't go back to the way things were. No one will wait for you forever, I said calmly. Noah, loving you has been too difficult, too difficult. I'm exhausted. I don't want to love you anymore. Raindrops began to fall, gradually becoming heavier. The traffic flowed endlessly through the rain curtain, the neon lights flickering in bizarre colors, flowing like a dream. Noah's gaze remained fixed on me, raindrops falling into her eyes, and the spark that had once been there slowly faded. Her lips parted slowly, her voice trembling as she spoke. Lucas, don't do this. Give me another chance. I'm begging you. Noah was too proud, and after all these years by her side, I had never seen her so humble. I'm begging you. But who should I beg for? The one who had loved me so painfully for so many years. I suddenly understood that love doesn't fade gradually. Instead, it disappears in an instant. The fire that once almost consumed me after being extinguished at some point could never be reignited. I gently pulled Noah's hand away and whispered, "It's too late." Noah's eyelashes and the corners of her eyes were dotted with raindrops. Her clothes were soaked through, and the strands of hair on her forehead stuck to her face. The rain felt as if it weighed 1,000 pounds, layer by layer, breaking her pride completely. She blinked. A droplet hit the ground with a soft plop. I couldn't tell if it was rain or tears. After 6 months back in my hometown, my relationship with Anna hadn't progressed much. We still got along very well, but every time the topic of defining our relationship came up, I always felt like I wasn't ready yet. My last relationship had been too painful, and I started to worry a little. One day I went to see Anna but found her packing her things. A suitcase stood by the side, and she was folding clothes. I stood there stunned. "Are you leaving?" Anna didn't look up. "Why the rush? What time is your flight?" 2 p.m. "I'm leaving soon." I stood there, a little stiff, and said, "Oh, I see." The room fell silent. I awkwardly tried to make conversation. "Well, I suppose this place is nice to look at when it's snowing, but in the summer, there's nothing special about it." Anna looked up and shot me a glance of complaint. "Is that all you have to say?" I said, "Safe travels," and that's it. Anna lowered her head and continued packing her things, visibly upset. I bent over and tried to look up at her from below. "Are you crying?" Anna rolled her eyes, turning her head to the side. So, I tried again, looking up at her from the other side. "Are you really crying?" Anna snapped. "Are you sick or something? I'm leaving." "And you don't have anything else to say?" I nodded and said, "Then don't leave. Stay and keep me company." She snorted. "Why would I stay with you? I'm not some love-struck idiot." I was speechless, feeling a little disappointed as I watched her continue packing. She leaned in from the left side and looked at me. "Are you crying?" I didn't answer, turning my head away. Then she leaned in from the other side and asked again, "Are you really crying?" I didn't respond. This little girl sure had a strong sense of revenge. A moment later, Anna said, "I know you'll miss me. I'll be back the day after tomorrow. Don't forget to pick me up at the airport." I was surprised. "Huh? You're coming back?" "Obviously." She gave me a look. "I paid for a year's worth of rent." I scoffed and said, "I'll get it back for you then." "Huh? Why? Don't you want to live there anymore?" I tapped her nose and said, "My mom would never have the nerve to charge her future daughter-in-law rent." Anna's face turned red as she reached out to hit me. "Who's your future daughter-in-law?" I grabbed her wrist and pulled her into my arms gently. I lifted her face, and in the soft kiss that followed, she said, "Wait for me to come back." I didn't hear from Noah again until 6 months later through a message from a friend. "Do you know Noah's suffering from severe depression? A few days ago, she mixed alcohol with sleeping pills. Luckily, they found her in time, took her to the hospital, and saved her by pumping her stomach." She cautiously added, "I heard when she was brought to the hospital, she wasn't unconscious yet and kept calling your name." I fell silent. "Do you want to go see her?" I rejected the suggestion. Our paths had long diverged, whether for better or worse. I didn't want any more connections with her, but I didn't expect Noah to come find me. The northern snow came early that year. It was only December, but the sky was already blanketed with a thick, swirling snowstorm. The small town wasn't too noisy, and the snow fell quietly. Anna and I had just finished shopping at the supermarket and were heading home when we spotted a figure standing under a street lamp not far away. The figure was already covered in a thick layer of snow. It was Noah, standing still, watching us quietly with emptiness in her eyes. "Lucas." Her voice fell into the snow, trembling slightly. I nudged Anna. "You go ahead. I'll catch up in a bit." Anna furrowed her brows, then reluctantly said, "I'll give you 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes, okay?" After Anna left, Noah walked up to me. We hadn't seen each other in almost a year. She looked thinner, and the once arrogant look in her eyes had dimmed. "Is there something you need?" I asked her. She just stared at me, her eyes slowly reddening, her voice hoarse as she said, "Lucas, I can't let go." "What should I do? How did you let go?" she asked. "Teach me, please." I replied calmly, "Once you've heard enough, you just let go." Noah looked slightly dazed, hunched down as if my words had pierced her like a knife. "We just missed each other." Her eyes reddened. "If I had understood sooner, maybe we could have—" "No," I shook my head. "Maybe we could have. No. No!" I shook my head with a bitter smile. "Noah, it was never about missing each other. As long as I didn't leave, you'd never think of me. We were never meant to be. There was no future." Noah's lips moved as if she wanted to say something, but the words never came. Tears, or perhaps melted snow, dripped from her eyes. When I noticed fresh scars on her wrist, I sighed. "Noah, I used to think that loving someone so much and not being able to have them meant the world was going to end. But now I realize, in this world, everyone can keep going. No matter who's missing, you'll let go eventually." I glanced at my watch. "My 5 minutes are almost up. Anna, that little jealous troublemaker, would surely be upset if I was late." I turned to wave at Noah. "All right, time's up. Let's go." "Noah," just as I was walking away, I heard a heart-wrenching cry from behind. "Lucas, I can't let go. I'll never be able to let go." I kept walking, not looking back. Later, as I was taking off my shoes, Anna leaned against the wall, glaring at me with that strange look in her eyes. She mimicked Noah's tone, saying, "Oh, Lucas, I can't let go." I acted nonchalant and said, "Mom wants us to come over for dumplings. You going?" She immediately forgot about the scene and brightened up. "Yeah, let's go." The news that the genius painter Anna was holding an art exhibition quickly trended online. My friend was beyond excited and called me immediately. "Please, please, you know Anna, right? Help me get a ticket. I love her work. I went to see Anna, but she only gave me one ticket. I don't have any more, just this one for you. I was speechless. She really is too proud. I gritted my teeth, but when the day of the exhibition arrived, my body honestly showed up. I really wanted to see what Anna had painted in this small town. The exhibition was called The Nightingale's Rose. What was strange, though, was that there was no one at the entrance. The exhibition hall was dark, and I started to feel a little doubtful. Could I have gotten the time wrong? But then, in the next moment, all the lights turned on at once. I stood frozen in place. The hall was filled with paintings, big and small, scattered all around. All of them were portraits of me. There I was, drinking beer on the balcony, wearing a coat, walking on the beach, laughing foolishly with my head down. I had never known that Anna had painted so many portraits of me. I didn't know how she remembered all these moments. Each scene was vivid, with lifelike expressions, and her gentle brushstrokes overflowed with love. Every moment we spent together had been captured by her paintbrush. I walked down the hallway to the last painting. It was an oil painting. In the tranquil dawn, a nightingale handing a rose to a young boy, emitting a soft glow. My eyes welled up with tears as I stared at the painting, then at the person who walked out from behind it. Anna, holding a single rose, smiled as she walked toward me. She said, "Would you cherish this nightingale's rose?" I nodded, took a few quick steps forward, and pulled her into an embrace. "Yes, I will never let it go." A friend asked me what I liked about David, and I was about to say his strengths. But suddenly, the image of another person flashed in my mind. I waved it away. Lucas is just a friend. He can only be a friend. I never thought Lucas would leave. He had been with me for 12 years. How many people get 12 years like that in their lives? Almost half of his life had been spent with me. We couldn't live without each other, but I never imagined he would actually leave. He said he was going back to his hometown and wouldn't return. I thought it was absurd. He's not coming back. Then what am I supposed to do? After hanging up the phone, I went out onto the balcony and started drinking. If he wants to leave, let him. He's just a friend. I have plenty of friends. But no matter what, I couldn't stop panicking. I fumbled with my lighter for a long time, unable to get it to work. I realized I couldn't take it. I had to stop panicking. I fumbled again, still unable to get it to work. I had to go find him. I had to ask him why he wasn't coming back. Where could he possibly go when I was still here? But the moment I saw him, I realized he was serious. He had made his decision. I panicked. When I saw another woman appear by his side, I was consumed with anger. I'd never been so angry in my life. I spoke without thinking, and she slapped me. He told me to leave. So I was consumed with anger. I'd never been so angry in my life. I spoke without thinking, and she slapped me. He told me to leave, so I left back home. I dug out those Snoopy pajamas from my closet. It was a mistake I had made when buying pajamas. At the time, I thought it would make a good gift for him. It seemed to suit him. But since I bought too many, I wore it a few times myself. Every time he saw me wearing it, he was so happy, laughing behind my back and even taking pictures. Before he left, he told me to throw it away, but for some reason, I didn't. I just kept it in my closet. I took it out now and stared at it in a daze. It hit me, almost too late, that I had liked Lucas for a long time. I was the one who had relied on him more, but subconsciously, I thought I shouldn't like him. I remember what my mom told me before she died. Don't love someone too much, because love will kill you. Love killed her. Her whole life was spent on one man, and in the end, she gave up her life too. I understood. Love fades. Love isn't reliable. No matter how deeply two people love each other, in the end, they'll either grow tired of each other or even become enemies. Lovers will leave. If I were with Lucas, maybe he'd get bored and fall in love with someone else. But friends don't leave. Friends can be with you for a lifetime. I knew Lucas liked me, but I pretended not to know, deceiving myself with this friend label. But only now did I realize that he too would get tired and hurt. He would leave. I tried to get him back. I told him I'd understood. I begged him, lowering my pride. Lucas loves me so much. How could he bear to let me suffer? But he just smiled at me calmly. "It's too late," he said. I knew it. I had no chance left. The love in Lucas's eyes was gone, but it didn't matter. Right. If he could let go, then I could too. For a year, I didn't go looking for him. I didn't check any news about him. I pretended he wasn't in my world anymore. I ate alone, slept alone, lived alone. I didn't think about him anymore. I thought I was okay. I thought I had moved on. Until one day, I suddenly started having insomnia. I couldn't sleep anymore. I began taking sleeping pills, and later, I started to hoard them. After collecting a whole bottle, I took them with alcohol and swallowed them down. I didn't even feel pain. I just felt like it wasn't worth it anymore. While I was unconscious, I dreamed of Lucas. Since he left, I had never dreamed of him again. This was the first time. In the dream, it was snowing. It was cold. So cold. He was 17 again, draping a black down jacket over my shoulders and chiding me, "Noah, how come you're so grown up but still don't take care of yourself properly?" Tears welled up in my eyes as I tightly gripped his hand. But Lucas slowly pulled his hand away and began to grow older, turning into an adult. The smile on his face seemed weary, and he said to me, "Noah, I have to go. You'll have to take care of yourself from now on." Tears streamed down my face as I begged him not to go, but he slowly pulled his hand from mine and turned to leave. A suffocating pain shot through my chest. It felt like he took my heart with him when he left. I finally understood. I had never let go. I will never be able to let go.